Welcome to the Mozzy Sales preview for the Vilanova test event. This episode is all about our predictions for who will perform in the AC40s. Now, we probably should be starting this episode with Emirates Team New Zealand as the defenders, but they're just really boring, so we decided not to. Joking. The real reason is that, well, none of us can really see past Emirates Team New Zealand as the favourites for this event. The AC40 is effectively their ball, that they design the boat, all the other teams are coming along to play. And on to top of this, they've got the most hours in the boat, they've done the most manoeuvres in the boat, and they have the best foiling percentage, all from the Recon data. Add on to the top of that, their actual team of sailors, their quad for the boat, has more hours than any other team does. And they have Nathan Utteridge, who has the most hours in an AC40 of anyone alive. So there's very few points that you could look at which say Emirates Team New Zealand aren't favourites. However, I have, in the predictions to follow, picked another team to win. There are some chinks to the surprising, overwhelming data which points to Emirates Team New Zealand. First of all, a lot of their AC40 time has been in Auckland, not in Barcelona, and the conditions there are a little bit more conducive to foiling manoeuvres. So that could explain their higher foiling rate. The second thing to bear in mind is their AC40 or LEQ12 is probably the furthest away from a standard AC40. Now, if you want to know more about the complexities of what makes a boat an AC40 versus when it's an out-of-class test boat or LEQ12, then I've got other videos on that. But basically you can see from these photos here that the Emirates Team New Zealand cockpit setup for their AC40 is very different to the one design version. Therefore, the time that Burling and Otteridge have spent in those cockpits may not count so much to how well they will do in the AC40 at the Preliminary Regatta. Having said all that, we have had some test racing. This is mostly just practice racing, so the race management system to get up to speed. However, Emirates Team New Zealand have again dominated this racing. Here are the results. So you can see a few teams have either not finished races or not even started them. But that aside, you can see that Emirates Team New Zealand are again well ahead of the pack. Honestly, if anyone suggests another team except Emirates Team New Zealand as their favourite for this event, then, well, that's a bit of a spurious shout. Nevertheless, as I said before, I have actually picked another team as my outside favourite in our predictions, and Rob has picked a really surprising team to challenge Emirates Team New Zealand. If you can think of any reason why Emirates Team New Zealand aren't your favourite, or you think another team has the best chance of winning, then fire that down in the comments. I would really like to see that explanation. But jumping into it, let's look at all the challenging teams, what their chances are, what their background is, and how they might fare in this preliminary regatta. Let's start with Luna Rossa, because they're the most interesting team probably in their sailor signing since the last cup. Bruni and Spittle have been retained by Luna Rossa, but neither are spring chickens. In the background, they brought on Ruga Tita again. Tita was with them at the last cup, but I don't think he
didn't sail.
Yeah,
they were just running his Nacra food simulator for him.
But he's back. He's not really done much in the Moth outside of Italy just because of clashes of dates.
Outside of YouTube, outside of Facebook. Big Moth sailor on Facebook. Good sunglasses game.
Yeah. Good sunglasses game.
Rob's idol.
Well, I think this will be a big problem when we go to Barcelona. I'm going to have better sunglasses game than most of the sailors. People probably assume that I'm a sailor.
Brought on Ruga Tita again, and they've signed top youngster Marco Gradoni, who is, I think, the first sailor ever to win 3 Optimist World Championships on the trot, and was the youngest ever World Sailor of the Year. And he is, from what I can tell, pretty much given up a 470 campaign to just do sailing on their LEQ12. So they have really solid young talent coming through. Do you think they stand a chance of starting this event or any event?
I would start the young guys, or at least one of the young guys, because there is also Youth America's Cup being sailed in the AC40s. If this event counts for nothing ultimately, what better way to try and win the Youth America's Cup than get your guys racing in the real America's Cup warm-up events?
What do you think? Do you think you throw the young ones on at this early stage?
Well, I mean, would you call Tito as being young? He's probably
No. He's different though.
but he is different. So I think where I'm thinking is that does he have a place in that team if he's not helming?
I think he has a place in that team because Luna Rossa is an Italian team. Like, they're a passionate Italian team, and he's the face of Italian sailing.
I agree.
I think
he is. So actually,
he's like the Ben Ainsley of Italian sailing.
Is Spittle the one in under pressure?
But then he's the match racing experience. Is he the man you just trust to get you off the start line every time?
And that's what that's the approach they took.
They've hardly done any time in AC40 at all, but they seemed actually in the practice racing to be a pretty good team, despite hardly spending any time in the boat at all, which was a little bit of a shock. Where do you think they'll finish, and what would be a kind of like a we'll take that kind of thing?
I think if they're not, I think them, American Magic and Team New Zealand, if they're not the top three, they'll be disappointed. Third or second, kind of.
But they also haven't spent that much time in an AC40. Like, why would they be any better than Ineos?
Because Ineos are rubbish. No, I don't know. Ineos probably aren't even rubbish.
Yeah.
Maybe I've forgotten about Ineos.
I think I kind of
top four.
Them and Ineos.
If you're not in the top six,
no, I think top threes are solid. I think all those returning teams will target a top three because that means they've beaten another returning team and they'll be happy with that. So I that's what I was going to say for what they would take as a win from the event. We'll go away happy if we've beaten another returning.
You're
team.
A bit disappointed if you came fourth out of Luna Rossa, Ineos, Team New Zealand, American Magic. You'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I agree. So,
and if you get beaten by Lingy or the French, you'd be...
That's well below par.
That's well below par.
However, what we must say about them is they spent the least amount of time, apart from Orient Express, in their AC40.
Shows how seriously they're taking the event.
I don't think they've got any right to believe they should beat Ineos, but I think, nevertheless, when you get the sailors in the boat, they will feel they should beat at least one of the returning teams. But I think they'll be last out of the returning teams.
Just because of hours
Just
in the boat.
Time in the boat.
I mean, maybe that makes sense. So are all the sailors ultimately about as good as each other? Give or take. So then does it just come down to how many hours you've done?
Maybe, although in the practice racing they were pretty good. So that's the other thing. The reports in practice racing, they were pretty well polished. They took some races off American Magic. So American Magic, they have made a signing since the last Cup. They didn't re-sign Dean Barker, whose days were probably, he's been around the Cup a long time, probably past his peak years.
He wouldn't have helped a Lingy capsize on their first sail, didn't he?
And they brought in Tom Slingsby, arguably the best sailor in the world right now.
Barker out, Slingsby in.
Good change.
Pretty shrewd call, I'd say.
So they're left with Paul Godson, Tom Slingsby as their two headline sailors, two helmsmen. Pretty much, when you look at the sailing resume, is identical in terms of their dinghy sailing, lasers, then moths, gold medal in the laser world championships, multiple moth world champions, both of them, and now they're co-helms. I guess the only question there, because we don't really see in the depth of that team that there's another helm standing in, the question is who will be helm on starboard and who will be helm on port?
I think Slingsby will start. He'll be starboard helm.
I reckon so.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see, won't we?
We'll see.
That's almost like the most certain thing about this America's Cup. I would say that Slingsby will start on starboard for American Magic.
In the practice racing, they had Michael Menninger and Riley Gibbs. I guess a bit of a surprise was Michael Menninger. So we don't know him for any kind of like Olympic sailing, but he's a match racer. So
I wonder how that really works in a team though, when you've got your two set helmsmen, and then to have a match racer thrown in there in the mix. How do you integrate
Well,
that?
this is what we were saying with Luna Rossa. Maybe you just have two guys who just hit. But equally, like American dinghy sailing is a bit different to everywhere else in the world because you have this really strong college scene.
Yeah.
So he might be, you know, I know guys who team racing who have raced this chap, and he's regarded as one of the best team racers in the world. He probably went to Harvard or something and is a total genius. Probably we should look at where he went, but that'll be like American sailors often have different backgrounds because it's not so much about the Olympics.
Where do you think they'll finish, and what do you think they would take as like a win from this event?
I reckon they come second.
I think they'll come third.
Okay. I'm going to say they'll win because I think I know who you're going to say is going to win. And they'd be my second pick.
But they won't
normally,
win.
But I think they will win. But they may not.
But they won't.
I think they are the most likely team to win if the obvious team, which I think is Emirates Team. And, okay, going what they would be happy with.
In Olympic sailing, everyone always talks about regattas being like, oh, this is a process regatta. That's what you say when you didn't win. It was a process regatta, but they're the kind of team that I can see just saying, we just want to come off the pin in every race.
I don't know. I just can't get my head into how why. Yes, Slings.
Like I'm gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've got a serial winner on the helm.
If you're Slingsby, I guess you're going into this being like, I'm better than all of you.
Yeah, his confidence is gonna be super high, so he'll be going into it.
And he's never helmed in America's Cup. He's always been the guy stood next to the helm, so he's got a point to prove. Also, these guys, if Orient Express, the French, take any races off them, that's humiliating.
They're going to come second. They're going to come second.
Okay, we'll get on to that in a second. And if I guess the other team is a Lingy, who they won't want to be beaten by Lingy, who are a new team to the Cup as well. So I think American Magic will, if they beat those two teams, don't lose face, they'd be kind of on par happy. But I think Slingsby will have a point to prove, and I think they'll win because I think Slingsby and Goody are the best pairing.
Slingsby's the best, and I think that might be enough. If I was to rank all the helms, I'd be like Slingsby, Nathan, Burling. Well, then you're into then I'd say basically Spittle and is maybe the next. Then it's Goody and Bruni are super similar.
Okay, so we'll jump into the new team of the Cup because so we've got Quinton Delapierre. So he's known he did NACRA's, didn't medal, but he was a fairly regular top 10, top 5 on the NACRA circuit. Got pulled into Sail GP to replace Billy Besson and has done pretty well for the French team.
They won 2 events.
They won 2 events. I mean, we should say that these AC40s, we don't know whether they're going to be on ride height kind of autopilot. So basically they put in a height, they want to fly above the water. And so that does, in theory, open it up for them to step in and do better, because the idea behind these boats is it could be like an owner-driver thing. So, and they are way better than the owners you will get driving if you're in a normal owner-driver.
I think Quentin will be really good. I think Kevin Pepinay trims the wing on the AC50, so his helming time will be way down. That'll be their issue. He's obviously a really talented sailor, but I think he just will have fewer hours than anyone helming a foiling boat by a long stretch.
I think throwing a team in scratch, yeah, okay, like they're doing well in different aspects, but to pull something together and something, yeah, okay,
they'll win a race.
Yeah, okay, I can see how.
Don't backtrack. You've got them coming second overall.
Yeah,
they're going to be in the final. Imagine.
I can see how they will have moments of they'll nail the start and they'll be able to sail. Probably be able to sail fast, but putting that all together as a team of 4.
Yeah, okay, maybe I'm going to backtrack. Even things like trimming a twin skin mainsail. You're not just going to get in a boat and be like, oh, I know how this is done.
They know each other. It's the setup has basically come from SailGP. Saying all that, the boat is a kind boat for someone to get in, scratch. But still saying all that, if they're not last, that'll be a huge win for them. I think they'll go away happy from this event. First of all, to be on the water sailing, because it's been a battle to get to here. This is a massive win. They've basically, just in time, they've got a boat and they're going to beat this event. And if they can take some races, if they can win a race, I think this is a massive win for them. Next team up, I guess, is Ineos, because they are the next team on this list right here. I think this is interesting. So, hours on the boat. Well, let's first of all, the test event, they had Ben Ainsley, Giles Scott on the two helms, Bleddyn Mon and Lee McMillan on the flight controller trimmer. And I guess there were a few surprises in there. Maybe Ian Jensen, I think you would have put in.
Well, he's like a mainstay of their SailGP team, isn't he?
Yeah.
It is a bit surprising that they aren't just taking their SailGP team, really. So, Ben, Goobs, no, he can't sail. Yeah, he can, he sailed with them last time. He was obviously in the team. And then Luke Parker,
yeah.
who's not British.
For what it's worth, Bleddyn, I think, is a really talented sailor. And I think he's one of those people who Olympic sailing just passes by because, he's not in the right place at the right time. He was super talented in junior sailing and toppers. I think he was like one of the few people to win like multiple topper nationals year after year. I think he won the worlds. And then in 29ers again, he was like one of the top 29er sailors. And then for whatever reason, he was too small for 49ers initially. So I think he did a bit of radial sailing. And then he was into uni and went to work for Red Bull on an internship. And then was straight into America's Cup stuff. So it just kind of passed him by. But I think he does have the talent to be on the boat, whether you'd put him ahead of, obviously, Goobs has a history of the results, so...
I think Bleddyn offers something different, I think, because he's a clever guy. He's technically minded, and whether that input and being in there in the race team, having someone that potentially looks at things from two different angles is what they want.
Ben and Giles, so I guess that's looking at what happened in the last cup. That was the obvious way they'd go if they split into a dual helm setup. However, Ben spent a remarkably little amount of time on any boat. Obviously, this team hasn't spent much time on the AC40 at all anyway, but Ben's hardly been around sailing. So what's he been doing?
He's got a handle at home that he holds and it flaps and he just tries holding on to it. Yeah, and he's just training hours and hours at that.
I guess the elephant in the room here is Ben's not young either, and whether, looking at the hours from the Recon, I've been thinking up until the practice event where they put him back in, I was thinking he's not going to be on the boat. That's what I've been thinking. But he did the practice event. We don't know, maybe by the time this video comes out, they'll announce the teams, but as yet they haven't. Will he be on the boat? Or
well, considering, like we say, this event doesn't matter, and what it is good for is like publicity, probably you just have Ben Ainsley at the event because he's Ben Ainsley. If you want to use this event for, say, corporate entertainment, for instance, which I'm sure they all do, you want Ben Ainsley there and you want Ben Ainsley racing. I don't think it's got any influence on who helms the cup.
Can you imagine, though, that Ben, the way that he is and the character he gets portrayed in the public, the guy that wants to be uber successful, wants to win everything, would want to actually actively not helm, and he'll be making that decision himself to walk away from
he'll helm
like the figurehead of what was effectively his own team.
He'll just helm.
It's kind of.
At this event, he'll definitely help.
Yeah, but as a bigger picture...
He should probably start training a bit harder.
I think this could go either way. I think Ineos... I'm going to say Alinghi. I'm going to come back to the podium with Alinghi, so I'm going to say Ineos 5th.
Yeah, I think they might well come 5th.
I think it goes back. I think they would want to be top 3. Yeah. But I just think there's always a calamity within Ineos.
I mean, the other thing is, like, if any team has form for doing well in events that don't count for the America's Cup, it's Ineos and Ben Ainsley. Like, that is his thing.
Apart from when he won the America's Cup with Oracle.
Alinghi, Red Bull, and they are returning to the Cup. They've got Arno Sarafagis, who is basically known. He's done moth sailing. He's not come through.
He was super big in moths in the
early years.
Not when they very first started foiling, but
I think like 2013.
Pretty much when the Mach 2 was the thing to have. Yeah. He was really good. Like won the Europeans. Him and Simon Payne were the best Europeans, pretty much.
Yeah, and he then on the back of that has done the GC32. So the interesting thing for this team is, I guess, the rest of the positions, and they do actually have some sailors who are worth talking about. So I think it's Maxim, I can't pronounce the name, Bachelin, who is down on the website as a helmsman. So it could be him, but they've also got Nicholas Rolas, who was a Oppie, I'm not sure if he's Oppie podium or Oppie world champion, but he has been spending a lot of hours on the boat, talks very well, but I think the role he's been in most of all is as a flight controller or trimmer. So I think they've got some options there, but I think the biggest thing going for them is how much time they've been spending in the AC40. They actually didn't modify their AC40 to an LEQ for a long time, and as far as I can make out, the cockpit is still the same. The control systems, even for their LEQ 12 foils they're using, are the same control systems with the same hydraulic mechanisms and everything. So they are probably the team that spent the most time in that configuration. So if we accept that they're Olympic sailors, so of a standard,
they've got hours under the belt.
I mean, they're not going to be bad. They're not going to be bad sailors. Yeah, okay, but they might have not have won.
But isn't Sterno Bertorelli going to helm anyway?
But it'd be so cool if he
should.
helmed. Like, I'd be all for him helming. That'd be super cool.
That's what the America's Cup should be. All the billionaires who fund these teams should get behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Especially now that you have a port and starboard helmsman.
But so this is my outside pick for the podium. I think they'll usurp both Ineos and Luna Rossa just because of the time they spent on the boat over anything. So I'm picking them, just miss out in the final. But I think they'll be in pretty good shape.
I think they'll beat one of the returning teams, but I don't think they'll quite make the podium. Yeah. Is my guess.
So I guess you're saying fourth.
Fourth, probably.
And by default, I'm 5th.
5th. That's what
but I think I can see where you come. There's a lot of logic for them having a good event with the time that they put in and the way that their program's been geared.
When we first...
So that brings us to the end of our predictions. I think that would be a reasonably long episode, but who cares? No, we'll put it on the internet and see if people watch it. Okay, that brings us to a wrap for these 2 preview shows. If you've not already checked out the first episode, then the link will be somewhere on the screen. And equally, at the start of the video, I was talking about Emirates G New Zealand's AC40 being quite different from what a One Design AC40 is. If you want to know more about that and the controversy surrounding it, then again, there'll be a video around here. Thanks again to sponsors B&G, Craft Insure and Alan. And I'll catch you around. Hopefully see you in Vilanova. Take care.